Hello, APS Online students. This is David Brish, your counselor here, and today we're going to talk a little bit about resume writing. So what is a resume? A resume is a written inventory of your skills, of your education, of everything that you have done up until this point in your life, and the goal is to market yourself. Okay? The goal here is to make sure that the person who has never met you before, who's never seen you, who's never talked to you, gets to see what you're like on a piece of paper. So I know it's a little strange sometimes for students to talk about themselves, but you're going to have to for a resume. So you need to start thinking about your strengths. You need to start thinking about how to market yourself. Okay? The resume is the marketing tool, like I just said, It's also essential for a bunch of different things that are going to be happening in your life, for applying for jobs, for college admissions, for internships, for workshops, for scholarships, for anything that needs an application, really. So what's a resume used for? You can use it for any one of these events in your life. Now, once you create the first resume, you can just adjust it a little bit to make it applicable for something else. So for instance, if you're making a resume for a job that you're thinking of getting, let's say, you create the resume, and then you later on you're like, oh hey, I heard the scholarship that Mr. Brish told me about. Maybe I should use a resume to help me with this scholarship. Then you can just adjust parts of the resume in order to feature your education, whereas when you were getting the job, your resume was mostly about your previous job experiences. All right, here are 3 questions to guide your resume writing. Number 1, what is my purpose in writing a resume? Your audience is very important. Okay, so making sure that you keep that in mind is going to help you out tremendously. Are you writing for a summer job? Is it for an internship? Is it for college? Right? Each of those 3 types of resumes is going to be slightly different in what you emphasize about yourself, because the audience is different, right? A college admissions officer is different than somebody who's going to hire you for a job, is different than somebody who's, looking through stacks of resumes, trying to figure out who they should give this scholarship money to. Question number 2 is, what type of person and experience are they seeking? So once you know your audience, then you can think about, how to best showcase your skills for that audience. Okay, so if they're looking for somebody who's good at communication, who's good at being a team player, then I've got to think about what I can showcase in my life that would get that across in that resume. The third one is, what skills and abilities do I possess, and which ones am I going to highlight? So once you know your audience and you've come up with your skills, then you have to make sure that you've highlighted them correctly. Now, it can help to do some research, which we'll talk about in a little bit, to figure out what the company is actually looking for, or what the scholarship is looking for, or what the college is looking for. Those things can help you figure out what you're going to stress and what you're not going to stress. So a couple of tips for effective resume writing. The first one is the formatting. You want to be as consistent as possible. So when you're thinking about how to lay it out on a piece of paper, you want to make sure that you have consistent headings and that all of your sentences are parallel, or they kind of match. You want to make sure that you have headings and dates in the right places so that visually it's easy to read and look at and get in a glance the kind of information you want. I do a lot of resume searching. It's called paper screening for APS Online for the teachers we have here, because I'm on the interview committee, and the first thing we look at are a whole stack of resumes. So what we're looking for in that stack of resumes is something that stands out to us. So it's really important that if you get into a giant stack of resumes, that yours stands out too. And part of the thing that can help do that is effective formatting. So let's look at a couple resume examples here, and I'll show you what I mean. Here's example 1. Let's see what you think about this one here. We've got student info at the top. you have a little bit about, like a little blurb about the students and some skills that are here. I like this kind of setup because I can see if I'm the resume paper screener that I get a kind of snapshot of a person right at the beginning. So a little bit about the person and then some skills that the person can do. One thing that might be better is to put a skill, strong sales persona, let's say, and then put an example of that skill. So strong sales persona, comma, for instance, and then when I do this, this, and this, then I have a strong sales persona. Or my leadership skill, I have good leadership skills, comma, for instance, when I did this, I was a leader, right? Then you have professional experience. So we have what we did at our last job, super targets, and then at the job before that as well, and then it ends with education, right? This, I think, is a good profile of someone who's trying to, get a job. So this is an employment one. But remember what we said before, you can tweak the resume a little bit in order to highlight other things. So let's say this Tony student here is now going to edit this and make it for college. Then instead of starting with professional experience, maybe I'm going to put my educational experience here and my awards that I got and maybe my GPA and that sort of thing here at the top instead of the professional experience. All right, so let's go take a look at resume number 2. Here's an example number 2. A lot of students like the format of this one because you can see the headings are all nice and neat on the left-hand side there. Right, very easy to see. And then they have the info on this side. One of the drawbacks to this resume, though, is that the format isn't consistent. You know how the objective here, pretty good, we have a nice little phrase there, but the experience of babysitting, we need to move the babysitting all the way over to this side, right? We need to not have put this in the middle of the page. We need to make sure that it's all left justified all over here, right? So that it looks sharper and makes more sense with all the rest of the categories here. All right, let's take a look at resume number 3. Here it is. All right. Now this one I think would have benefited from these titles being moved to the side here or being bolded and underlined, or the format looks slightly off because we have a centered like education here, but then all of the terms here are in sort of an outline form. So if we're going to stick with an outline form, education should be kind of moved over to this side, I think. All right, but similar info. This person has whenever you can highlight the languages you speak, if you're bilingual or trilingual even, that is going to help you in pretty much any resume for any reason. So here's some skills, right? Look at this. Trilingual, this person. Would be awesome. Okay, then let's look at resume number 4. All right, so here we have, some headings, which look pretty good. She's also bolded a couple of things. So the actual volunteer service here is bolded, right? Actually, this actual volunteer service is bolded. So it kind of stands out a little bit better. Some students like this. I would add a lot more skills in there, and this is kind of typical, problems that some students run into, is that you're not used to writing about your own strengths and stuff. So, when you need help with that, that's what I'm here for, is to help you out with, finding your strengths and creating a good resume. All right, so let's have a couple of tips here. I have a bunch of lists like this. Take a look at the power verbs. Now, you're going to be just writing phrases for the most part in your resume, so it's really important that you pick the right verb and you don't keep repeating yourself. So lists like these are good because A, you can get really precise with the language you want, and also you don't have to repeat a word like planning or organizing or executing. You can have all these other words that you can use in place of that word so that you A, seem educated and intelligent, and B, you aren't repeating yourself all the time and making it boring. It kind of pops and stands out to the resume reader. Alrighty. Another thing that might be able to help is making sure that you describe what your responsibilities are. For instance, if you are currently in a job, you're looking for a new job, you want to list all of the responsibilities that you've had in your current job so that your new employer will see that you are have some experience in some things, and also that you're responsible for a whole bunch of aspects of your business wherever you're working now. So one thing that's a little weird, I want to highlight this is, oops, I went too far here, is using present tense in describing your current job. Okay, so anything that's happening now, you're going to use present tense. I know it's a little different than an English class where you're choosing present and past, and you're kind of staying the same. But then for all of the previous stuff, everything in the past, you're going to use past tense. Okay, so we're going to have a mix of present and past, which may be, you know, something that you haven't been used to, but we're going to use present tense for describing current jobs, and previous jobs are going to be in past tense. Keywords are really important to capturing the attention of the resume reader. So consider doing a little bit of research about the organization or the company or the scholarship or whatever to use some of the language to help set your skills apart. For instance, if Daniels Fund is looking for a well-rounded student, then you're going to have to make sure that the picture of you in your resume is well-rounded. You have some academic stuff in there, you have some volunteer experience there, you have some music experience in there, you've got some sports experience in there, you know, so a well-rounded kind of student. This is where research can be really helpful. And finally, some tips about references. You're going to need an adult person who is not related to you that's going to say nice things about you for your references. You're going to want 3 people. So, of course, if you're reading this as an APS Online student, I would be happy to write letters of recommendation to be a reference. If you're looking for a job and somebody wants to call me and talk about you, I promise I will only say good things about you. Even if there's some bad things, I just won't even mention them, you know. You want someone who's not related to you. You want someone in the recent past. It's this, let me highlight it, 2 to 3 years sort of thing. Okay, so someone in high school or someone that you know from your high school life is probably pretty good. You want to make sure that you have their current phone number and email. So what that means is you might need to ask the person. It's polite, so that some people don't always answer unknown phone numbers, right? So it's polite to know that someone's going to be calling me so that I know to make sure I pick up the phone. And then it's also polite because you might need to, you know, get their current phone number or email. You might have, if it's 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they might have a different phone number or email. So if you need help with any of this resume writing, you need to, you know, contact me. We can work on it together. You can start a little bit on it, and then I can come and do some proofreading and some editing if you want. But the next step is to look at the video right below this one on how to create a resume in Naviance. You could also use a product like Word if you've created a resume in Word. But you need to do one of those 2 things. Create a Word document resume or create one in Naviance. All right, guys, so when you need help, make sure you contact me, and I would love to help you with your resume writing, all right? All right, we'll see you soon.